Okay, in this lesson, we're chatting about more general tips and approaches for the mindset blocks that we've already talked about, but also any other mindset blocks that may come up or may be present on your creative business path. So, the tips I'm about to share are more overarching things that can be really applied in these different scenarios. So, number one is reframes. So, anytime you have a mindset block that comes up that feels really true, think about reframing it to be a new thought, a new, essentially, mantra that you can say to yourself to move forward. So, for example, this can apply in a couple of different ways. But let's take the block of fear. Maybe you feel really scared to start your creative business. Rather than saying, this feels really scary to start my creative business, you could say, this isn't scary, it's just new. When you can reframe the fear into it just being new territory, there's a lot more exploration and openness to that because you can navigate it, you can approach it, and you can kind of see it as an exciting adventure rather than something to be avoided and feared. So rather than saying this is scary, you could say this isn't scary, this is just new. So another example would be with failure. And maybe you have some thought going in your head that says, if I fail, that means I'm not cut out for this. And instead, you could reframe that and say, the faster I fail, the faster I learn. Or the faster I fail, the faster I get better at this. Right? So these are just two examples, but any line that you see in your mind that's running on loop, that's not helping you progress, that's not helping you take action forward, that's not supporting you in this beautiful new dream that you're bringing to life, any of those thoughts, just take a moment, sit down, write down the thought as it exists in your mind, and then write down a reframe of that thought that is empowering and supports you to take action towards your creative business dream. Okay, the next tip I want to talk about that's so powerful with anything and all things mindset and honestly action in our lives and our creative business is actually a coaching method from Brooke Castillo, who's like the queen of life coaching. And she has a method called The Method, which she teaches. And the abbreviation of it is CTFAR. And what that stands for is circumstance, thought, feeling, action, result. So those letters, CTFAR, are a simple way to run through and reverse engineer the results that you're getting to go all the way back to the circumstance that caused it. So our action and our results result from the beliefs and thoughts that we have about ourselves and the world and what's possible. So when we can reverse engineer from the result that we got or didn't get back to the belief, back to the circumstance, then we can really get deep again to the root and change the root. Because if we just try to change the surface level of what we're experiencing and the results that we're getting, we're not going to change the root enough to change those results really deeply and effectively in the future. So this is just like a tree. If a tree is not doing well, if a tree is struggling, just stick with me on this metaphor. If a tree is not feeling its best, if it's sick, if it looks diseased, if we're just trimming off leaves, that's likely not going to change much. But if we get down to the root and drop down to the root cause of what's actually happening and treat that, then that will help the tree to flourish. And it'll save more energy because we're not trying to cut off all the leaves that are diseased. We're getting down to the root and fixing it at the cause. So that would be the way to treat the root cause and save energy in the process and also have a more effective result. And the same thing goes for anything in our lives, that our results are actions, and going all the way back to the root cause can actually save us energy and change the end result. So for example, let's look at this in the context of one of the blocks that we've already encountered. So with this reverse engineer process, starting with the result or the result that you didn't get. So let's say you had a goal to start your creative business, to finally launch your creative business, but maybe the result is that you didn't, right? You're still just thinking about it. The result is you're still thinking about your creative business. Then when you move backwards one step into action or inaction, well, the inaction right before you launched, let's say you had everything ready to go and you were about to share it on social media, and then you didn't. That was the inaction. You did not press post. You did not press share. You did not press publish. Okay, so what was the feeling right before you didn't share that? What was the feeling right before you didn't take action? Let's say in this case it was fear. It was that block of fear. The fear that you would be judged, the fear that people would make fun of you, the fear that you would mess up and fail. That fear was the feeling that stopped you from pressing share. Okay, so behind that feeling of fear, what was the thought? So let's say in this case it was, well, people are going to judge me, I'm not going to be supported, and this is a stupid idea. Maybe that was the thought before the fear. Okay, so then moving one layer back, what was the circumstance behind that thought, right? Because that thought could be also thought of as a belief. So people are going to make fun of me. I'm not going to feel supported. This is a stupid idea. So what's the circumstance behind that thought? And in this example, maybe this person who's experiencing this looks back at their history and they had an experience in the past where they tried to launch a different creative business and they were really passionate about it and they didn't hold anything back. And when they shared it, their family judged them for it. They didn't support them. Their family made fun of them. They didn't believe in them. They said it was a stupid idea. And this person felt a lot of shame for believing in it. They felt a lot of shame for trying it and they shut it down because they didn't feel supported. So maybe that was a previous circumstance that led to this new thought. So when you can get all the way back to that circumstance, you can start to address that circumstance and heal that circumstance. And so this is one way to reverse engineer it and get to the root of what's causing your results or you're not getting results, because it's not just about, I just didn't take action. I just haven't been productive. I just haven't, what is behind not taking action? What is behind the fear? What is behind the thought behind the fear? Because when we can get back to that root, we can start to heal the root, which will heal everything else. So this is one method with any of these blocks that come up, is to do this, to go through that with yourself, CTFAR. And if you want to dig deeper into this, Brooke is the queen of it. So you can look up the coaching method with Brooke Castillo online, dig deeper into it. And then also her podcast is really great, The Life Coach School. Those are places to dig even deeper into this method specifically. But that is a great quick run through that you can check in with yourself to get to the root, heal it, and then change the action and result from that root being healed or addressed. Okay, the next tip when you're approaching mindset, when these blocks come up, when these fears come up, when anything is standing in your way of moving forward towards bringing your creative business to life, return to your why. Return to your bigger vision. So in the last module, you did the why exercise and you got really deep down to the root of why you want to start this creative business. So it's in times like this where you feel the fear, you feel perfectionism taking over and stopping you, you feel like an imposter, you feel scared to fail. When any of those come up, just return to your deeply rooted why. Have that as your compass, have that vision board on your desk, have that why statement on your fridge, have it visible each day so that when these moments come up, you can get grounded in yourself and grounded in your intuition of why you're doing this. Because there are going to be hard times, but that's life. Life is hard and good and all of it, and so is creative business. I think that's a myth too that's presented kind of in the same vein as like growing really quickly and 6 figures in 3 months, which again, like power to that. But in that vein of growing really fast being the only method, I think there's also a myth that business is always easy, and it's not. That's not why we choose it. It's beautiful because just like life, it has its challenges that we move through, we learn how to navigate, and we get stronger through, and we get to serve the world and our community through that. Like beauty, so much beauty, and we get to be creative in it. Like there's so much beauty and there's so much worthwhile. But in these harder, challenging mindset spaces and blocks that come up, return to your why, because that's going to give you the grounded intuition to know why you're doing this, to remind you why you're in this, and that you can do this. And it's through action that you're going to get better at it and get stronger at it and keep moving forward. Okay, the last thing I'll share is that if you want to dig deeper into all things mindset, I have a whole series devoted just to this on Skillshare called Navigate the Creative Wilderness. And in each episode of the series, we hop to a different point on the creative wilderness map. So it might be the cliff of comparison, the dunes of doubt, the cave of hiding. And in each of these episodes, I share specific tips on how to navigate the most common blocks that come up on the creative journey. And there's like 19 episodes total. So if you want to dig even deeper, I highly recommend hopping over there to supplement your creative business journey. Okay, so your action step from this portion of the module around mindset is to pick the one block that feels most prevalent for you right now. So whether that's imposter syndrome or fear or failure, whichever block feels most prevalent, pick that block and then do the CTFAR coaching method with yourself to work through that block. So for example, if your main block right now is imposter syndrome, then you would think about a recent result that you've had that imposter syndrome had an influence on. And then you would work backwards from that result into the action or inaction, backwards into the feeling, the thought, and then the circumstance to really start to understand your imposter syndrome better and how to move through it and work with it to keep taking action forward in your creative business. Once you've done that, join me in the next lesson where we will chat all things time management and productivity and how to make them work for you. I'll see you there.